Hello everyone, so in this video we are going to talk about building blocks of OOP, attribute, and mainly focusing on instance attribute. So today we are going to learn what is an attribute, types of an attribute, in that instance attribute. Then in coding section we are going to see how to create an instance attribute, modify the value of instance attribute, how to access instance attribute, how dynamically we can add instance attribute to an object, how we can dynamically delete instance attribute to an object, access instance variable from another class, and at last list all instance attributes of an object. So let's see what is an attribute. So the variables that we used in a class is called attributes. So here is one sample of a class. In that we created a class called myClass. In that we use one variable called var is equal to 10. So this variable is called attribute. Then using object and dot operator we can access the attribute of a class. Up next we are going to see what are the types of attributes. So we have two types. One is an instance attribute that we are going to see in this video in depth. Second is a class or static attribute which we are going to see in the next lecture. Let's see instance attribute. If the value of a variable varies from object to object, then such variables are called instance variables. For example, this is a sample class. In that, using constructor we initialize our instance variable. Then we created an object for this test class t1 and we passed 10 value to initialize our instance variable. Then we created another object of a same class test, that is t2, and passed 20. Then t3 object and we passed 30. And for every object a separate copy of an instance variable will be created. This means that for each object of a class, the instance variable value is different, and here you can see that we created a first object, we passed 10 as a value, then t2 20 and t3 30. So for the same instance attribute or variable we pass 3 different values because we created 3 objects and every object has a separate copy of an instance variable. In Python, to work with an instance variable or method, we use self keyword. We use the self keyword as a first parameter to a method. The self here refers to a current object. Now let's see the coding part behind the instance attribute. So at first we are going to see how we can create an instance variable or attribute using a constructor and a simple class. So this is a simple class student. In that we created one constructor, and then to this constructor we pass 2 values, name and age, and we assign those values to the instance variable. So now name and age are instance variables. Then we created a first object of this class student. Then initialize this class with Jessica and 20. And as I said, to access an instance variable, we just need object reference, dot operator, and the name of that instance variable. And after this block is executed, you can see the result, name Jessica, age 20. Then we created another object for the same class, student. Now we pass Kelly and 10. But now when I access this instance variable using this ES2 object reference, you can clearly see totally different values of the instance variable. As definition stated, Kelly and 10. Next we are going to see how we can modify the values of an instance variable and assign new values to it. So now we use the same class Then we created an object of a class and initialized that with Jessica 20, and we just accessed our instance variable, and you can see in the before we have a Jessica age 20. Then to modify instance variable, we just need our object reference, dot operator, and our instance variable name. We can use our assignment operator to assign new values to our instance variable, and you can see after the result Emma and age is 15. Both the instance variables value is changed. So this is how we can modify the values of an instance variable. Next we are going to see how we can access the instance attribute using object reference self. So we have a same class, but now we created one instance method called show, and we pass self our default parameter. Then as we said, we are going to access the instance variables using self, and you can see here self.name, self.age, and this is how we can access our instance variable using instance method and self and dot operator. And you can see we created an object, and then we call this instance method, and you are going to see the result Jessica age 20. Next we are going to see how we can access the instance attribute using getattr method, get attribute method. So we have the same class, then we initialize our object, then we created an object and initialize this constructor. Then using getattr method, we pass the object reference and name of our instance variable or attribute, and you can see here name and age are our instance attributes, and you can see the result Jessica age 20. Next we are going to see how we can dynamically add instance attribute. So this is the same class, then we just created an object for the class. Before that we have only two attributes which are instance attribute. Then using our object dot operator, we can directly create one more instance attribute for our class, for our object, and you can see we assign 75 values, and after that we can assign all three instance variables. One is a name, second is the age, and now third is marks. You can see after result Jessica age 20, marks 75. So this is how we can add dynamically instance attribute. In similar fashion, we can also dynamically delete instance attribute. We use the same class. We use one instance method show to show all the instance variables, and you can see we created an object and call our show instance method. At first we are going to see the result 10 and Jessica. Then using delete attribute function, we are going to delete our instance variables for the object S1 roll number. So here the roll number, which is an instance variable for this S1 object, is going to be deleted, and you can see here when I'm calling instance method again, you can see student object has no attribute called roll. So this roll number instance variable is deleted dynamically. So this is how we dynamically delete instance attribute. Now let's see one scenario. So we have one class, and then we have one more class, but this class second car is a child class of this vehicle. So now vehicle is a parent class, car is our child class, and there is an inheritance. In our parent class we have one instance variable called engine, and we assign some values to it. Then in car we have instance variable called max speed, and in display instance method we are going to show all the instance variable of a parent class as well as a child class. And we already know to access a parent class in a child class we use super keyword and using that in child class we just initialize the constructor for the parent class, and now we can access the instance variable of a parent class in a child using self. And you can see here we create an object for the child and we just call display, and you can see the result, engine and max speed. At last we are going to see how we can list all the instance attribute of an object. So we created a same class, then we created one object and initialize our constructor and initialize our instance variable, and you can see using object dot dict you can get all the instance variables for this particular S1 object. And to get the present value of an instance variable we just use one for loop and just use items for this dict, and you can access all the values and keys of this dict. You can see here roll number is equal to 10 and name is Jessica. So we just finished with the coding part. Thank you everyone.